I was here until probably the early to mid-70s. I was elected to the first diocesan pastoral council, and it was Phil Erlander who promoted me on that one. And then he went and died on me, and I didn't have my mentor after I had to go over to the chancery to meetings and act like I knew what I was doing, representing all of South Minneapolis. And I was on the first Archdiocesan Pastoral Council, and we had Archbishop Binns and Archbishop Byrne, and then they both died over a fairly short time period. And we had Archbishop Roach, and then we had a new church vision from there. And it all began to make some sense. It took a long time to understand where we were going. But it was the grounding and incarnation that made me survive all the other stuff. Way back when I started kindergarten, would have been in probably 1942. The kindergarten was a small house that was next to what we called the new school, which now is called Moynihan Hall. And I'm not sure why they used that. Perhaps all the classrooms were full for the 8th grades, and so they bought the house next to the church or the school and used that for the kindergarten. And not too long after that, it would be sometime after that, it was in about 1960 or thereabouts, the church acquired the next 2 houses to it, and so they had 3 houses in a row. They knocked them down, and that became the site of the addition on Moynihan Hall. And it was built on stilts, far-sighted, because then we had a parking lot. And we never had a parking lot because everybody who came to Incarnation walked, because Catholics clustered in walking distance of the church back in the 30s and maybe long before that, certainly in the 30s and 40s. We had, on 40th and area, we had over 100 grade school age kids, and there wasn't one that didn't go to Incarnation. We were a Catholic ghetto, and walking to school every day and walking to church. And when I grew up in 40th and Pillsbury, my grade school years, we walked. My dad died when I was 8 years old, and my mother was left with 11 kids to raise, but very, very religious and very faithful. And so we were all up and dressed and off to church for 6:30 Mass in the morning. And then here she'd come with the mother hen with all of her little ducklings coming behind her. And then we'd go back home, have breakfast, and back to school. And that was just the order of life. And it wouldn't occur to us that there was any other kind of life. And we didn't really associate with anyone who was not Incarnation kids. Catholics were with Catholics, and publics as they were called back then. Kids going to the public schools were the publics. The publics had their own social groups. And the world revolved around, for Catholics, revolved around the parish. You didn't go to restaurants for dinner, you went to church for dinners. And we had church dinners with much more regularity. And when we were early married in the late 50s and early 60s, we had the Cana couples here. Father Harry Toohey started that, and that was a wonderful program for married couples. And it was a chance to go out and have a nice dinner in the school cafeteria. But we'd converted to taking our turns. It was kind of fun to have it be your month to do it, and think up a really exotic menu and decorate the cafeteria, and it was a nice night out. Tried to do that today and nobody'd come. You'd have to hold it at a restaurant. The culture was totally different than the culture today. And I'm not sure if it's better today or not, but there was something comfortable about knowing all the Catholic families and knowing all the Catholic kids, and having the continuity through grade school and high school with them. So, Monsignor Moynihan was the pastor in the 40s when I was in grade school, and I remember that we'd get up. We were scheduled periodically to serve weekday masses, and we would, if we had the 6:30 mass, we'd have to be up and out and be here in time to serve for 6:30. And some thought they'd be lucky if they got 8, but most of us didn't want 8, even though 8 overlapped into a little school hour, because and the pastor, the Monsignor, always had that mass. He might have been a beautiful man and loving, but we were frightened to death of the old Monsignor. He was just bigger than life when he came in on Sunday morning in his red beretta and his red cape, and that definitely intimidated us kids. So nobody wanted to serve the 8 o'clock mass. And he was followed by Father Monsignor. Well, he was Monsignor Gormley. I think he had been Monsignor before he came here. And he had retired as the two Moynahans before him, had retired from the faculty at St. Thomas University, or then the College of St. Thomas. And so these were guys who thought they were going to a retirement job, and they had 5 or 6 associate pastors, and so there was somebody to delegate every day of the week to, and he never had to answer a phone or a door, and so there was some distancing. But and I think Monsignor Moynihan enjoyed that distancing. That's my perception as a kid. Then Monsignor Gormley, on the other hand, was very friendly and outgoing, and the kids loved him. They weren't frightened of him, and he was a great man for a long time. And when he became ill, he actually was taken in by one of the women of the parish to take care of him until he died. And then of course Father Birch came. He was a delightful pastor, and Father Steve Adrian, was the associate under him in 1966 and 68. I ran for the state legislature. I lost both times, but the object was, that was when people were beginning to be aware of abortion, and it was becoming a public issue. And my object was to provide the loyal opposition to the notion that would be a logical thing to legalize. And so that was the biggest plank in my platform, was opposition to abortion. Well, I ran in 66 and 68. I lied, I ran in 64 and 66. Nobody ran in 68. And then in 1970, Father Steve Adrian said, somebody has to run and make the case for opposition to legalizing abortion. And so he decided he would run. Well, that was unheard of, that a priest would run for public office. And he went over to the Archbishop, as he tells it, and said, I'm going to do it.